Especially in the winter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a given in the winter. Or rainy season.
Oh, yeah.
That was interesting. That must be the meeting owl.
I run a no-shoe house.
It's like a
I have
camera
no
that-
idea.
It's like a camera that tracks people that are talking. You'll probably see it move.
Oh my
It's
God.
kind of cool. It's this thing.
Service
This guy
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
The first thing she does.
Okay.
Wife's on a board that they have one. It's kind of
See it in
sweet.
action right now.
It really
Yeah.
is.
Nope.
It's very cool.
They used to say in the old country, slick,
Oh, yeah.
a long time ago.
You guys ready? It's 6, so we'll call this meeting to order. This is a workshop for the City of Bangor's Board of Assessment Review. You're hearing me talk, Brian Collins. I was the most recently elected chairperson of this board. So we have several agenda items before us tonight to work on. I do want to announce right at the opening that a quorum of this board is present per section 10 of our bylaws, noting that at least 3 members of this board are present. We're actually all physically present, although we do have the meeting being recorded and shared on social media. So I guess getting into things, I'd just like to have everyone introduce themselves. We have several new members to the board. So Mr. Bourne, if you would, who are you? And
George Burgoyne, and I've been an alternate for, I think, 2 or 3 terms, so
yes, sir.
I'm here.
Thank you, George.
Jackie Bina, I'm new here.
Awesome. Ryan Collins was most recently served as chair, and I've been here a while. Anyway, we'll say. I don't know how long, but a while.
Dean Bopane, I've been a board member for quite a long time.
Philip Cormier, board member at this time.
Nice. And why don't we do city staff as well?
City assessor.
Yeah.
And I'm Grace Innes, I'm the new Assistant City Solicitor.
Oh, welcome, Grace. Very nice to have you. Okay. So now that we know everyone, our first, I guess I'm supposed to announce the agenda items here, so I'll do that. Our next agenda item is to elect a chairperson and a vice chairperson of this board. And just for reference, most recently, that was myself and Mr. Bopane who did that. So is there discussion concerning a chair and a vice chair?
Before we do that, can we ask legal counsel the status of the recent resignation?
Sure, let's do that.
Nice to know if the resignation is effective upon receipt by the city, or does the board, is the board expected to accept?
Sure, yeah, great point. That may affect, in theory, who could serve as, chair or a vice chair. So to council, we received a written letter of resignation from Associate Member Furon, advising that he's no longer in a position to serve. And question being, of course, it's not addressed in the bylaws anywhere, if that resignation becomes effective immediately upon receipt, and if the board then has to take some action, say to formally accept Mr. Furon's resignation.
I'm gonna defer to Phil on this.
Oh, good. Phil, you're in the hot seat.
So you forwarded me the letter.
I did.
I just forwarded it to the city clerk.
Oh.
And it's when the city clerk receives that resignation letter that there's an official removal of the person from the board.
Okay. And the bylaws are silent on the issue, so I guess the impression I'm getting is we don't need to take some formal action outside of the city clerk removing the person from the seated list on the board.
Well, if I could, it might not be a bad idea to see that it is included in the next year's version of at least addressed as to what the process might be. Just because evidently there is a process and we're following it, and it just, it codifies it for us. I'm sure the city clerk is well aware of what she needs to do when she gets a letter like that.
Sure. So maybe, incorporation of a procedure,
Yeah.
say to resign from the board in the bylaws then. Is that-
Or at
okay.
least something that addresses it or says that, you're a member until the city clerk says you're not a member. From point of appointment, you're on till you're off kind of thing, but at least something that addresses it is probably not a bad thing to have in bylaws.
Cool. Okay.
The other thing on that, Chair Collins, is that the list before you, so Jackie came on as an alternate member.
I see that.
The other four are regular members.
Yeah, so Jackie, you're an associate
Okay.
member, which is actually okay. Associate members.
George is a regular member?
George is a regular member now.
can
I got
participate.
promoted, I think.
Well, congratulations. Yes, and just for color as we're on the topic, but Mr. Cormier, Mr. Bopayne, and myself are also regular members of the board. So back to the resignation of Mr. Fearon then, I mean, I guess for consideration tonight, the city clerk isn't going to receive that until tomorrow morning. But maybe for our purposes and looking at a chair or a vice chair, obviously we wouldn't want to put Mr. Fearon in that role where he's indicated desire to, leave the board. So if everyone is satisfied with that, why don't we look at who may be tapped as a chair and or vice chair?
Is the current chair willing to continue to serve?
The current chair has assumed responsibility for an additional 6 offices in his employment. That brings the total to 11. The current chair is more than willing to continue, but will be asking for assistance from a vice chair where he is really not in control of his schedule at this point, speaking plainly. Just kind of responding to putting fires out, I guess, at this point. So a true pleasure, but the last thing I want to do also is stand in someone's way. So if someone has aspirations, to slide into that role, please don't let me hold you back. But provided I get some assistance, I would be willing to continue.
George, do you want to take on more responsibility?
I'd be, never having been vice chair, I think preparation is important in running things.
That's how I
and,
did it.
So I'm not in a position to run for chair, nor do I want to, and unless I hear something from any other person, I'd be pleased to nominate our current chair.
Oh, geez. Let's pick on Phil next.
I go with George right now. I really don't see myself in that position.
I make a motion to nominate Mr. Collins as chairman and myself as vice chairman, if I'm allowed to do that.
It's a little different, but okay. So we have a motion to nominate myself and Mr. Bopayne for another term as a chair and vice chair.
And that's consistent with the bylaws, right? Because sometimes they say you have to elect, because of the offices you have to elect, one and we could run through that, just technical, whatever, but
Doesn't really,
I mean, it's the same dozen of eggs either way.
we
I just didn't
follow
wanna, yeah.
the democratic rules of order, for example. It's kind of silent actually on this part of our business.
Okay. Well, it's something we could deal with at
It's a good point. You typically, associate members, looks like unfortunately, we're not able to put them in, as chair or vice chair. They participate only if a regular member isn't present. I don't see anything else.
That section of the bylaws, maybe we should insert the word regular before members in the second line, because as you just noted, associate members don't participate unless a member is absent.
Sure.
And they're designated by the chairman. So I guess that we should clarify that the chair and vice chair have to be regular members the next time we work on the bylaws.
Yeah, I just infer that specifically from that section 3 part. But anyway, back to there was a motion. Is there a second concerning the motion for myself?
Well, I'll restate my motion to what the members said of electing both the chair and the vice chair with one vote, and so if we get a second to that, then we can do it with one vote.
I second it.
So was that an amendment?
Actually, it was more, I think it's more of a substitution
Okay.
than an amendment.
Yeah.
It significantly changed the motion, that's why,
Sure.
yeah.
Just, democratic
I've
rules. of course, we
taken with Robert's rules before,
Yeah.
so, I have a disability that I bring out once in a while.
No worries, just want to make sure we don't have to tackle that amendment first. So, moved Beaupain, second Burgoyne for myself, and Mr. Beaupain as your chair and your vice chair. Is there any discussion? Okay, we're all physically present, so I know previously under COVID, we had to do the roll call vote. The meeting's being recorded. I don't see a reason to do that. I also don't see anywhere in the bylaws that it says we have to. So,
Is it appropriate for you to designate Jackie as a participating alternate and
Yeah.
therefore able to vote?
sure, I'd like to see that. I'd like to get you involved, so.
I would love to be
bef-
involved.
Before we do that, I will formally designate Ms. Jackie Bennett as a voting, fully participating member, noting that several are absent. So, thank you, great idea. Now we can see you raise your hand as well. Anyway,
All right, there we go.
back to the original topic or project on the floor. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor signify by raising of your right hand. Okay, down hands, those opposed. Okay, motion carries. So you have myself and you have Mr. Beaupain then for yet another year. Thank you very much, Dean, for your willingness to help out in that. I wouldn't be willing to do so without you, sir. So,
And thank you for both.
appreciate it.
Very charitable.
Or thank both of you, I guess.
Hey, we'll figure it out. Okay,
Okay.
so we got that. We've got a chair and a vice chair. Wonderful. Our next item of business is the, looks like Freedom of Access Act training presented by the City Solicitor's Office. Sit back, relax, and make some grace.
Great, well, hello, everyone. I haven't met any of you yet, but I am the new Assistant City Solicitor. And I put together a training for you guys on FOA, due process, and the ethics rules. If you have any questions, you can ask me, and if I don't know the answer, I will find out and send you an email.
I have a question. In the past, I used to be asked to sign an ethics statement. And the ethics statement says that I have no financial interest in any company that does business with the city of Bangor. And I asked them, do you have a list of people that do business with the city of Bangor?
I do not right
And I
now.
never received an answer.
That's why.
And I own shares of various companies,
Sure.
publicly traded companies.
Yeah, pretty
But
common.
how can I sign the statement that says I don't have an ownership in a company? Because as I recall, the ethics does not specify a percentage ownership
No, I don't remember
of the
that.
company. And I would like that clarified. I don't mind signing the statement, but I want it to be truthful.
Yeah,
And if I own shares, say, in Verizon, and Verizon provides cell phones to the city, I,
Sure.
so I'm just curious about that.
yeah, I can talk to our city solicitor and get you a list, hopefully. But I will talk to him and get back to you on that.
And I think that also affects other boards, people serving in other roles
Sure.
within the
Of course it
city, and
could.
it's the same issue.
Yeah,
And it would be based on the same state laws, I assume, and maybe municipal ordinances, so yeah. It
Yeah,
would be good to
definitely.
let folks know.
yeah,
Having worked for the state for 37 and a half years, I own nothing.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's easier, I got a house, that's all I
Yeah.
can say, that's it, I got a house.
Did everybody, as an aside, down on Stereo Thunder Grace, but a good point on the worksheet. My understanding early on, we had an issue with the worksheets for ethics going out. Did everyone on the board receive the statement that they needed to
didn't.
sign? Yeah, I understand, right, and I didn't either. I had to ask on swearing in, whatever that involved for the form, so, okay. Well,
Yeah,
so-
back along at one time, yeah, I've been
Okay.
hanging around for a while, so.
So just, I guess, a note, but several board members don't have the worksheet that we're typically asked to sign, just divulging any ownership or business interest. So maybe it's, resending, or maybe they're available electronically, but I throw that out there because I sense that people didn't have that form. So,
yeah,
thanks.
sounds good. I will bring that up and I'll get back to you guys on that.
Fair enough.
All right, so I'm going to just start with due process considerations. So decisions by the Board of Assessment Review are subject to due process requirements per section 13C of your bylaws. Due process is the requirement that legal matters be resolved according to established rules and principles, and that individuals be treated fairly. The commitment to due process requires decisions by the Board of Assessment Review be unbiased, fair, and impartial. This means that the board members may not discriminate unlawfully against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, physical or mental disability, genetic information, gender, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, cultural group, or political status. And that's under section 33-5.1, if you wanted to look at that, of the Bangor City Code of Ordinances. I know that was a long list. So section 3A of your bylaws does not permit anyone on the board to abstain from voting unless they have a conflict. The Freedom of Access Act, which I'm about to discuss, assists in due process by requiring transparency of the board in making its decisions. So now we're going to move on to the Freedom of Access Act, which we all call FOA. So the FOA is a state statute passed by the Maine legislature, and its purpose is that actions of public bodies be taken openly and that records of its actions be open to public inspection. The idea of FOA is that public proceedings exist to aid in the conduct of the people's business. So there's two prongs of FOA, that's records and public proceedings. So for records, the intent of the state FOA law is that its actions and deliberations of the city and its boards be taken openly, and that records of actions be open to public inspection. Any record that is in possession of the city of Bangor or any public official involving the business of the city is considered public unless a statutory exception applies. There are a number of statutory exceptions. I don't even know them all yet. So we're not going to go over each of them, but if you ever have a question, feel free to come to us. But it's safe to assume that any documents or communications created or received by a board member involving the business of the board is a public record. Written communications include texts, emails, social media posts, and messaging systems, or any other electronic communication regarding city business. All communications regarding the business or activities of the city should be considered a public record, even if it's on your personal device. It's recommended that you create a new email address. It sounds like a lot of you have been on this board for a while, but just having a separate email to have your communications for the Board of Assessment Review to come to can make things easier so that in case something gets FOA'd, you don't have personal mixed with your business.
Just a quick point there, but
yeah.
both myself and Mr. Beaupain have access to city email, which has
Okay.
been very helpful.
Yeah,
Mr.
it is.
Beaupain doesn't, to the best of his knowledge, but
Oh, I thought we
I
said
would
you.
just as soon have then all the emails are on the city server and.
Correct. We will, I think there's a procedure for that. Excuse me, I just presumed that you had that as well. I do. Well, yeah. So anyway, yeah, good point, and it's a lot easier, so thank you.
And finally, you should be aware that the city may request to view your electronic communications involving any business of the board at any time. And then now we're going to move on to public proceedings. So this is a public proceeding that we're in right now. So a Board of Assessment Review hearings are public proceedings, and as such, they're advertised and open to the public. Under Section 6 of the bylaws, ex parte contacts between board members and the applicant are not permitted, with certain specific exceptions for the chair regarding procedural matters and with regards to pre-hearing rulings. So you may not discuss meeting matters with the applicant outside of the meeting or conduct site visits without public notice and convening the board. Under Section 7 of the bylaws, you may not discuss board matters with each other outside of board meetings. Section 11 of the bylaws states that meetings are open to the public under FOA except for executive sessions. So executive sessions would close the public proceedings, but they're for only very specific statutory reasons. Sounds like a lot of these reasons really wouldn't apply to you guys, but these include certain matters relating to employees or public officials, acquisition or use of property if premature disclosure of information would prejudice the city's bargaining position, labor contracts, consultation with an attorney regarding the legal rights and duties of the board, and discussion of information and confidential records. You guys do have a carve out for trade secrets in your bylaws. So Section 13 of your bylaws states that trade secrets remain confidential, and it allows the board to discuss trade secrets in executive session.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Can an applicant submit confidential information beyond trade secrets?
Honestly, I'm not sure about that one. Let me write it down and get back to you, but I would bet that they can.
To your point, I mean, I believe we've had some financial information in the past, which was held very close to the.
Yeah.
And I guess my point is that the bylaw reference to trade secrets maybe should be a little broader.
Sure. I'm pretty sure it was financials that created the issue in the
Right.
past, but.
Yeah, and I would imagine you guys probably deal with a lot of information that people don't really want to be public information, you know?
Our state statute is the 706A in Title 36. That allows for certain information to be
That's right,
confidential.
so.
Yeah.
So maybe
That's
that-
what the reference should be to, rather than main rule of evidence, which of course the bylaws also say, we don't go by the rules of evidence. So that's a bit inconsistent, but I think the reference should be to 706 and the confidentiality provisions in that statute.
I think operationally, we've been closer to that.
Yes.
At least in the past couple of years, to your point, we seem to have kind of followed that a little more.
Right.
Therefore, it should be in the rules of the road.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
it should be here for,
Yeah. Quit making work for Grace.
I know, right? I've got a long list now.
Yeah.
Executive sessions may not be used to defeat the purposes of FOA. Executive sessions may only be called during a public recorded roll call vote of 3 out of 5 board members present and voting. A motion to enter executive session must indicate the statutory basis and precise nature of the business in the executive session, and you may not consider any other matters while in executive session. Members of the Board of Assessment Review should avoid discussion of substantive matters verbally outside of the board meeting and by email, text, or social media. And so now we're finally on our code of ethics. So there's only a few more things, I promise. So first, I wanted to discuss conflicts of interest. So that kind of goes to your point about the statement that you were asked to sign. Board members are not permitted to participate in the deliberation or vote or otherwise take any part in the decision-making process on any agenda item before their collective body in which they or a member of their immediate family has a financial or special interest, other than an interest held by the public generally. And that's per section 33-11 of the Bangor City Code. Any board member who believes that they have a conflict must disclose the conflict to the board at the beginning of the board meeting, and when in doubt, it's always best to err on the side of disclosure. Once a conflict is disclosed, the board shall vote based on the facts before them whether the individual has a financial or special interest with respect to the agenda item concerned.
Can I ask if financial interest is defined in the city code?
I want to say that it was, but I don't have it in front of me. So I will be sending you guys a very long email tomorrow. Board members should attempt to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest by disclosure or by abstention. Once the board has decided that a member has a conflict, the member should leave the meeting room and not return to their seat at the dais until the matter on the agenda is complete and voted on by the board. Per section 33-14 of the Bangor Code of Ethics, members of the board may not occupy any other office in any other governmental entity where the duties of the other governmental office are incompatible with the proper discharge of their official duties within the city. So the next thing I'm going to cover is gifts, and that's a really short one. Board members may not accept gifts, favors, or anything of value in return for a decision of the board per section 33-8. However, if a family member is giving you a gift, favor, or thing of value, you may accept it, but that's because you won't be a part of the board when you're making a decision on their matter. Confidential information is our next section. Board members shall not disclose confidential information concerning the property, government, or affairs of the city, or use information to advance their financial, special, or personal interests, or the financial, special, or personal interests of others per section 33-7 of the Bangor Code of Ethics. Confidential information means information, oral or written, that is available to board members only because of their position with the city and is not a matter of public record. And did you have a question?
Yes. How would we as a board get access to confidential financial information of the city?
Well, I think it's just meant to cover, so the Code of Ethics just covers everybody. And so that was just generally to cover anybody who might have access, just privy to their position on the board or the council or anybody.
So like operations maybe would have
I don't
like.
think our board has
don't think that
access
applies
to
to
any confidential information of the city.
Yeah,
the applicant, maybe,
Right, yeah.
but not the city.
Right. Finally, is just a provision on social media, since that's very prevalent now. The Code of Ethics goes into specific requirements, which is at 33-7.1, to ensure that commission members or board members are not perceived by the public as representing the city in their social media posts, while at the same time respecting First Amendment rights of commission members. Section 33-7.1D of the Code of Ethics provides a qualifying statement that members of the commission are required to substantially adhere to. The views that I express on this site are my own and do not reflect any official view or position of the city of Bangor. Section 33-7.1D also lists 3 inappropriate uses of private social media, so that's disclosure of confidential or proprietary information about the city, customers, employees, private citizens, or private businesses. Any statement that could reasonably be considered to represent the views or position of the city or one of its departments unless an official position has been taken, and posting or messaging in a manner that could reasonably give rise to an expectation that someone contacting the person would receive an official response. In summary, it's recommended that board members be careful about their discourse on social media and review 33-7.1 of the Code of Ethics before communicating anything on social media. So, are there any other questions that you all had?
Would you mind, Grace, just including a copy of that 33-71 with your
Sure.
communication? I just don't recall reading that in
Yeah.
entirety.
That's
in the past.
available on the website, isn't it?
It is, but I can include it too.
Great. And I guess one more thought, but when you were talking about entering into executive session, did you indicate somewhere in there that it needed to be a roll call vote?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
so it's just kind of important to remember that apparently that's
A 3/5 majority.
3/5 majority roll call vote.
Yeah.
If we go to do that, which may happen in theory. So, okay.
Could.
And if you guys wanted a copy of this, this is just my little script that I referred to, and it refers to all the sections and stuff in the bylaws and state laws.
sure, that
and
would be
I
nice.
can send that as well.
Sounds good?
All right, anything else?
Questions?
Basically, part of the functioning follows at least a version of Robert's rules, like, you know, you make motions, you amend them,
Right.
you know, this, that, and the other thing. Should it be, is that something?
Well,
that
George,
maybe should be
You gotta
here?
throw Robert's rules away.
Okay, well, I'm looking for, okay, all right.
They're in the bylaws.
They are? Okay, that's
And
what
I
I was,
actually tried to find it one time, it was unsuccessful, but.
No, it's.
I was looking for them, and I,
22, section 22 says the democratic rules of order, and if we could get a link to that.
Sure.
And we routinely send our bylaws to applicants when they appeal to us.
Right.
I think we should be also sending at least a link to the
Yeah.
democratic rules of order
Right.
so that they have
I like
access
that.
to that before the hearing.
if the motion's necessary, I'll make it. If it's unnecessary, I won't. What do you think? Because it'll come from your office, I assume.
Yeah, you mean a motion for what?
Well, to do exactly that, to have that information fleshed out and to send it to folks who are appealing, so they have some sense of what we're being held to in terms of
Why
dealing
don't we
with
get the
theirs.
link first?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then all of us open the link,
okay, yeah,
look at these rules.
yeah,
And you, for instance, can decide whether, why learn new rules if I know Robert's rules?
I think anyway, just in passing, I've looked at these and it's more of a condensed version.
Yeah.
It tries to remove like privileged motions and other
yeah,
things
there's-
that,
yeah.
that everyone struggles with. But yeah, I like that idea anyway, in
Yeah,
terms of reviewing what we have.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I think you're gonna find, it's just more of a trimmed version, like of maybe what we're thinking of, which has like all those classes of motions and, you know, what you have to act on first and not. But, yeah, I think it's a good idea. We also typically advise applicants for hearings that, like, they want to play by the rules of evidence. So they think that they're walking into like a court hearing. So maybe, you know, as we're clarifying and the like, you know, even if they're represented, we want to put right in there that, I mean, rules of evidence and the like just don't apply. It's an administrative hearing, not, you know, some sort of
That's
a
in the
court
bylaws
proceeding.
and also in the chairman's typical.
Opening, yeah,
statement.
absolutely, but just something to think about. Okay, other items for,
Yep, nope, What? My
She's
question's
still on the hot
answered. Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for sitting through that with me.
Sounds like we've got a couple changes that we might be looking at, so, yeah, very helpful, thank you. Okay, the next piece of business or agenda item for us this evening is to discuss the scheduling of any recently filed abatement appeals, if any. So, Mr. Drew, are there any recently filed abatement appeals?
There are none.
Excellent. Okay, well, so somewhat perfunctory that way, there are none, so, okay.
This year's filing deadline is January 26th.
Okay, well, so, in theory, you know, may end up with something prior to that.
They typically come in somewhat on the late side, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
They have postmarked the 26th.
Postmarked, okay. All right, perfect. Okay, well, that covers any of the set agenda items. Is there any other business that we'd like to bring, or anyone would like to bring before the board? Mr. Drew, do you have anything, general comment, training, things to be on the lookout for, or are you satisfied?
No, I'll email with you if there is something that's filed that we need to schedule.
Sure.
And I would just like to thank Chair Collins, Vice Chair Bobain, who are continuing, and our newest member, Jackie Bennett.
Hey, Jackie.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're gonna need your expertise, so. Okay, well, seeing nothing else then, I'd entertain a motion at this time then to adjourn.
So move.
Our meeting. Second. Moved and seconded that we adjourn our meeting. Is there discussion? Please, no. All those in favor, please signify by raising of the right hand. Okay, motion carries. We are adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you all so much.
Can we walk out through?
Good night, safe travels home.